This week on Break It to Make It.
The quiet quitting thing doesn't mean anyone is doing any less. It just means I'm doing exactly what you hired me for. And so if you want people to do more, then raise the salary and then raise the whatever it is you expect of them. Because that's how, the salary works, right? Like, suppose if they do salary right, it's the what you produce for them, not the hours in which you did it.
Hello and welcome back to Break It to Make It, where we meet amazing people who've thrown out the rulebook, failed forward, or taken the road less traveled to come out on top. Today's episode does come with a language warning, so discretion is advised, and we are unpacking the hottest workplace topic for right now, quiet quitting. If you haven't heard of it, maybe you've not spent enough time on TikTok or Reddit, but the concept is really simple enough. Do your job, but don't go too hard. Don't quit, just the idea of going above and beyond at work. You're still performing your duties, but really not subscribing anymore to this concept that everything has to be hustle culture and that work has to be your life and the way that you measure your value in the world. To help us unpack it all, I'm really excited for today's guest. She is a United States Air Force veteran. She is a former jet engine mechanic who served as part of the personal flight crew for the Secretary of Defense. She's a leadership expert holding a master's degree in organizational leadership, and these days she's a very successful work culture consultant. She's based out of Las Vegas and spends her days helping companies be the place that people run to and not away from. Welcome to the show, Brittinay Lenhart. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
It is so great to have you. Thank you for joining us. And I know a lot of people are really interested in this topic, and it's a little bit polarizing. In your experience, what do you think is causing this rebellion of indifference?
I feel like, especially with more of the newer generations coming into the workplace now, there's a big difference in what generations value. And a lot of the newer generations are more work to live instead of live to work. So that I feel is like the huge indifference that's causing so much tension right now.
That makes complete sense. And I think we're really seeing that and those generational differences. If I think about stuff that's in the media right now, I think one way we could describe the C-suite is kind of running scared. We all know who Kevin O'Leary is from Shark Tank. He's an investor, the star of AMC's Shark Tank, and he recently said that people that go beyond to try and solve problems for an organization, their teams, their managers, their bosses, those are the ones that succeed in life. Do you think that's still true, or are they looking at it the wrong way?
I don't think he's completely wrong. There's always going to be the go-getters, but there's just a difference now in people valuing their time more, especially after the pandemic hit. People realize how important family and things are to them in compared to just grinding all the time. It just gave us a whole new perspective, and I think that's another part to this as well. But C-suite, is worried that they're going to lose, free work, if you will. But at the end of the day, hard workers that go above and beyond aren't going anywhere. Those people are still going to be there. So they don't have to worry about losing those people. That's just innate in people.
I think that's really great. And what about the people that we're not talking about? So you and I had the opportunity to connect. I feel like so much of the time we're always talking about the go-getters. Mm-hmm. But what about the steady eddies? What about the dependable folks? Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about their role and your opinion on how we should be thinking about those folks?
From a retention point of view, and I deal with that a lot with what I do with work culture, we need to focus on those people that are just consistent, because they're, those go-getters, like you said, they talk about them all the time, but at the end of the day, they're wanting more and more and more. And sometimes companies can't provide that more, so then they job hop, understandably. And then you have the people that are just going to be loyal to a company, and we don't focus enough on retaining those people, making those people happy. And if we're burning them out by this, grind till you die thing, it doesn't behoove that retention you're trying to keep.
That makes complete sense. I saw some crazy stuff that's doing the rounds of the internet at the moment. People showing literally that instead of paying them more money or doing something, offering them some more flexibility, someone who's loyal to their company to retain them, they would rather lose that person and then go out and hire one or more, sometimes having to hire multiple people when they could have just done something for the person who was there. Do you see that a lot? It seems like absolute lunacy, but do you see that a lot in your line of work?
Thankfully, my clients get it, and they're very flexible. I have clients that will just go above and beyond for their employees, and that's the whole great work culture thing, but these companies that usually don't care about work cultures are not going to go out of their way for you. It's their way or the highway. And when you signed on board, these were your benefits, and that's it. Shut up and color. And that doesn't, keep people around, like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are really voting with their feet. We have an amazingly strong labor market right now. And I mean, you and I are of a similar age, and maybe our parents as well. We are our father's daughters and all of that type of thing. And we've kind of grown up during this time where like employee engagement was the measure. It's the one that's on all the KPIs. What's our engagement score? What's our NPS? And that was supposed to be the big predictor. How are people spending their discretionary effort? Are they engaged? And that's the big success criteria for your organization. Is the idea that many people are now setting boundaries, people are setting boundaries is now being conceived as quitting corporations. And is that an outdated idea? Like, is that out of step? Because are we thinking about things the wrong way? Because a boundary isn't quitting.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing with quiet quitting that I've been seeing something on LinkedIn and stuff that it's a form of gaslighting, if you will. And I was like, oh, that's a hot take, that companies are saying, oh, you're quiet quitting, trying to make people feel bad for not working for free. And I mean, companies who care about their people are not going to burn them out, and they're not going to feel this way. Because again, people who want to go above and beyond, they're going to do that regardless. But yeah, I feel like this quiet quitting is a trend. This is going to go away at some point. It's just the buzzword right now, but there's more to it, like you said, with the boundaries things. And that came from, again, us going through the pandemic, realizing what was all important to us individually. And now so many people want to stay work from home. Like, I don't need to come in to do PowerPoints all day. I don't need to come in for that. I can stay home, be with my Basset Hound all day, and be happy. And it's so these boundaries don't just, the quiet quitting thing doesn't mean anyone is doing any less. It just means I'm doing exactly what you hired me for. And so if you want people to do more, then raise the salary and then raise the whatever it is you expect of them, because that's how the salary works, right? Like, suppose if they do salary right, it's the what you produce for them, not the hours in which you did it. And there's something to be said about that too.
I love the message that you've got in there, and I want to make sure that we scratch on a little bit and bring it to the surface. I think that what you're saying here is that some people are thinking about it wrong, and it is that gaslighting whole concept, because it's easy to combine this concept of boundaries and quiet quitting as glamorizing underperformance. But it isn't about discouraging ambition. It's not about doing the bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
It's about contributing, providing value, being fairly compensated, and then also putting boundaries in place. And like any good relationship, because that's what it is, right? A team is a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
care about you and you care about me, then we respect each other's boundaries. And it's not just a one-way street.
Yes, all that and more. It is a two-way street, and people like you said, that's the biggest takeaway for sure. Is that like it doesn't mean that people are being pieces of crap at work. It just means they're coming in, doing their job, and going home, not anticipating being stressed out all night because someone higher up wanted to email you at 10 at night while you're trying to put your kids to bed, and now it's just unnecessary anxiety. And leadership, and I say that with air quotes, people in leadership positions need to be more empathetic towards the entire concept.
I like that. And you raise an interesting point around work styles and work times. And it's so funny how many people don't have such a critical conversation, because leaders don't realize sometimes their impact. They're just accidentally hapless. It might work for me to be sending emails at 11 o'clock at night because that's my quiet time, and that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
But unless I've had a conversation with the person on the receiving end of that action to say, hey, Brittinay, mate, this time works for me and I'm going to send stuff, but I do not expect you to reply outside of your work pattern.
Mm-hmm.
There's, in every good relationship, there has to be that actual conversation. Absolutely. Otherwise, people just, you hurt people.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. It's a great point. Because I'm a night owl myself, so I can completely empathize with that. Just in this whole thing could be, a conversation. If people are that worried about it, leadership's that worried about people quiet quitting, well, let's talk about your company values. Maybe you haven't touched on those in a while. Great time to talk about it, because those values that you have should be what you're holding everyone to a standard to anyway. And if people are doing what they're supposed to be within those bounds that you set from the beginning of when you made this company, then what are you complaining about? Like, I see it from both perspectives.
I really love that values center as well, because one thing that we do know, and you talk about a lot, is these younger generations coming in. Mm-hmm. What we know about the younger generations is more than any before, they buy from companies that align to their personal values, mm-hmm. and they work for and stay working at a place because it aligns to their personal values more than any other predictor. Mm-hmm. They will not compromise on their values for money. And so going back and revisiting that, and then making sure that everybody in the organization understands the values, mm-hmm. and then as a leader that you're behaving in accordance with those values, because nothing is going to erode trust faster than you being a massive hypocrite. And so
mm-hmm.
So I love that values-based leadership, and we've heard a lot about that here on the show. Many people who've come and spoken about it, these people who we see like yourself being successful and building successful companies, one of the number one takeaways that we get from every single person mentions is to be personally successful, get in touch with who you are and what your values are. And then if you want to have a successful organization, have really strong values, make sure everybody's aligned around them, and then empower people to make decisions in alignment with the company values. Allow them to do their job, mm-hmm. and to use the values to light the way. Mm-hmm. And you talk about conversations. So we're talking about conversations here, and because everything's a contract, it's a relationship, and good communication, solves a lot of things. Instead of skipping straight to quiet quitting, is there a conversation that, say, I could have if I'm considering quiet quitting? Or as leaders, is there a conversation that should be proactively had? Like, what about the concept of a stay interview? Everyone's always like the exit interview. Oh, come on. I mean, mm-hmm. It's too late now, friend. And anything that comes out of that is going to be essentially bullshit, so that the door doesn't hit them in the ass on the way out. Mm-hmm. But talk about what are the conversations that could be happening and be initiated on both sides of the fence to make quiet quitting a positive instigator?
Avoiding, yeah, we got to have those conversations. You can't avoid this anymore. Well, I had so much to say, and I just had an INTJ moment that I just brain dumped it all. The conversations that can be had. Employees need to just be transparent from the get-go. Like they have to, like I said, a two-way street, right? So we have to have our standards, like with our boss, like, hey, like you might want to email me, at 7 at night and expect me to do whatever. That's not going to work for me. Like having that, and like you don't have to be rude about it, but like my entire career, I have what people think is gotten away with murder because I'm very transparent with my leadership at the time prior to working for myself. Because if you don't do that, people will walk all over you. And then from the flip side, as a leader, if you want to worry about where people are, ask them, like, what do you feel like is too much? Or do you feel like you need more or less on your plate? Like, where are we at? And I always say that, even C-suite, like, lead by walking around. Like, if you just sit in your office all day, you're not going to know shit. Go talk to people. Go talk to the people on the front line. You don't need to, like, talk to their managers, talk to them. No, go talk to your front line. And you're going to find out more about your culture than hiring me as a consultant, which, talks me out of a job. But that's what you should be doing anyway, talking to your people. So that's huge for me. Like, lead by walking around and talking to people. And you won't have to worry about this quiet quitting shit.
That is so true. I think back to when I was early in my career, and we had a leader. His name's Paul Voges, actually. He and I are still in contact. And I remember one of the most impactful things that he ever did was he would walk around and do exactly that. So at the time I was working for Microsoft in Australia, and Paul would come out and he'd just go from desk to desk to desk, hundreds of people, and just walk around. And, hey, how you doing? What are you working on? Just, what are you doing on the weekend? All of that kind of stuff. And as a young person, early in my career, to have the managing director, essentially the president of the company, know my name and greet me in the elevator and that kind of thing made me feel cared about and important.
Yep.
And I missed it when it went away. Yeah. And I didn't realize how lucky I was until I started working at other places, and I realized, oh my gosh, that's not how other people are.
That it's real. That's so true. I'm glad that you had it.
And so many people don't have it. And in fact, I've also worked at organizations where it's been the complete opposite of that. And where, as a leader in the organization, I've been openly chastised for the approach that we try to take. I'm a firm believer that if you have a problem and you want to, 1, know what it is, and 2, know how to fix it, go to the people that are doing the job and experiencing the problem and working with your customers. They'll tell you what you need to do.
Yep, every time.
Yeah, every time. And so what other, are there any other critical conversations? So you've had some really good ones here, which is 1, we've got to create a psychologically safe environment as leaders, as managers, as whatever you want to call it. 1, it's your responsibility, is what you're saying, to initiate that conversation and allow a space where people can be open and transparent, not worried that they're going to be punished by sharing some of their values or some of their boundaries, first of all. And then 2, be open to negotiation as a leader too, because your desire or your expectations may be different and at odds with the people in your teams. And so having that conversation and being flexible, I think those 2 conversations you talk about are really great advice. Is there anything else in those conversations, any other critical conversation before we move on that either camp should initiate?
I had to write it down, but because I didn't want to forget it. This is like free 99 work culture advice for C-suite. you need to go and look at your career trajectories, every single job. And some people want to be sole contributors. Those are your people, and that don't really necessarily want to go above and beyond. Or if they do go above and beyond, just compensate them with salary and leave them be. Like, you don't, like, you have to reevaluate how these career trajectories are going within your company, because not everyone wants to be on this career ladder um, situation. Like, I just had this post go viral. Wow, LinkedIn, thanks for once. But talking about like career, ladders. Not everyone wants to climb a ladder. We want to be, and it doesn't mean we want to be bad at that middle tier either. We just want to do our jobs, do it well, and go home.
I love that. And this concept that not everybody wants to be a leader, and this ridiculous notion that success equals having a leadership or a managerial position. It's absolute bullshit. I mean, I could make up some terrible numbers here, but it's a high percentage of managers or leaders shouldn't be doing it. Mostly because they're doing it because they think that they have to. They don't genuinely have a love and a desire and a passion to be a leader. They don't want to serve and support other people. If you want to be a leader, you are there to serve the people. They don't work for you. You are literally there to help them be the best version of themselves and unlock what they can. But then there's so many people who are like, I gotta be the boss, I gotta do this because I gotta check these life boxes. If we had more companies doing what you're telling us to do, we would have less shitty managers and we'd have more happy people, because people could tap into their strengths and feel like and know that they could be successful just being their great self at their strength and what they're good at, and go home to their families feeling tough. Yeah. So I love that. We talk a lot about young people, because really it is the future. They're our future leaders. They're the future of our organizations, and a lot of them feel let down. We talked at the beginning around what is happening here and what's driving this. And I want to ask you a question around capitalism. I know that that's like a really big thing, but a lot of young people feel let down by capitalism. We've got jobs, we look back at what our parents and our grandparents were able to achieve, but we get less pay, fewer benefits, less support because we move away from home. We get less security and stuff than previous generations. Like in my home country of Australia, most people younger than me will never be able to afford a home. They call us generation rent. And so some might say that when people are feeling powerless, and when this generation is feeling powerless, that they're trying to take back any control that they can get. Do you think that desire to control things in uncertain economic circumstance is part of what's driving this?
I hadn't thought about it before, but as soon as you started saying it, I can absolutely see it. Because I mean, with anyone, you're just grasping for straws if you don't have control of something, and until our entire world unfs itself, when it comes to the scam of colleges, like and loans and everything, like just putting people in so much debt, until we fix that, then millennials and Gen Z more are just treading water, and so any control that they can get, and if that's like, what, my time is valuable, since I can't, buy a home or do anything because this economy is complete dog do, you're going to give me my time back so I can go enjoy my life.
Yeah, and enjoy my life, I think is really important. But don't just enjoy, it's be recognized and contribute value in a way that maybe other generations haven't prioritized. Like, your value as a human is not based on what you churn out for Acme Incorporated. There are people in your life who love you, and you light up their life just by being you. There is nothing that you need to do. It doesn't matter how many emails you churn out or whatever, just spending your time with them, investing in your children, investing in your families. And I really applaud young people for recognizing that, because I think about the way that I was raised and I am still on that grind train. I feel guilty if I don't rise and grind. Do you know what I mean? Like if I try to take time for myself, I feel guilty for self-care because I'm like, I'm not churning out enough. I'm not productive. I'm not doing things. What do you think about that whole concept of our personal productivity and value?
One of my clients that I do executive coaching with, he's a VP. He's if you ever do like the Clifton Strengths, what is achiever. And I'm like, and that's great that you have that. We all need that in a company. There's got to be balance though, and there's always a shadow side to those strengths. Being an achiever is fantastic, but you cannot expect those in your tenure or whatever, those that you work for, your employees, to do the same, have that same grind mindset as you. And it's another note that I wanted to put out today was that, like, at the end of the day, this is your company, not theirs. It's your responsibility to keep this company afloat, not theirs. At the end of the day, you're going to, recession happens, they're going to go out the window. Loyalty has to be a two-way street. I mean, we've gone a long time for this, or down the rabbit hole of this. But, at the end of the day, it's your company. You cannot expect them to have the same sense of love and passion for your business as you. How does that even make sense? And so when you take that step back to think about that, it maybe helps things.
It's so true. And actually, a member of our team and I were having a similar type of conversation around this, but it was actually related to the care of our children. And we were talking about childcare professionals. And we're like, well, it's kind of ridiculous to expect, say, a childcare professional to care for your child and their children in the same time and place, because it's just how we're hardwired as humans. No one is going to prioritize your kid over their kid, like if you're in an emergency situation. And it's ridiculous to expect them to.
Right.
It's that same type of concept. Like people demand so much from people, and if you really think about it in the way that you've just outlined, it's kind of nuts. It's just completely unrealistic.
It's a great
but let's talk about the people who are sticking around, because I could talk to you all day about this. It's something I'm super, super passionate about, right? So we've got these great people who are sticking around, and employee retention really is, I still believe, a true measure of your organization. Like, show me a company where people are sticking around, and I'll show you a company that's got a good culture, right? But we talked earlier about companies that are trying to attract all the people in with the shiny, right? And so big companies, insert all of the alphabet soups, especially big tech, they're trying to retain people or attract people with perks. So I'd love to get your take on what's hot and what's a flop or what's not in sort of the big perks. Anything from like free lunches, pool tables, Taco Tuesday, all the way to like health insurance. So what's hot, what's not, and what do people really want in terms of the perks?
Perks that don't matter are like those tangibles, like you're talking about, like pool tables and things like that. Like, is it cool? Sure. But then if you, like, say you have all these pool tables and cool games, but then you go to use them and you get looked at kind of sideways for it, what the F is the point of it? There is no point. So it's a joke. It's a facade, and it's complete bullshit. So especially if you don't allow people to use those perks. Like Zappos, I know here in town, Las Vegas, they have like a music room, have good like instruments and like stuff, but they like incentivize people. No, go stop working, go do something, and that's different. But at the end of the day, those are still not the things that really keep people.
It's like that unlimited PTO shit, where they're like, you can have as much time off as you want, but you can't even get time to sleep, and I will never approve it.
Right. And that's like, yeah, a good majority of those are complete BS. And I think like a bait and switch that probably should be illegal in most places. I only know of a very few instances where unlimited PTO is like real. Um, and if you're like having one of those as an incentive and a perk, then you better live by that. Like if people want to take a month off, you better shut up and color or don't have that policy at all. Like,
Yeah.
but work flexibility is, I feel like, for the newer generations and things like that, like that is a perk people like. Like I can be hybrid, I can be work from home, I can like kind of if I'm a night owl, I can do this here because no one really needs me. I just need to give you a product that's done at a certain time. Those are the type of things that the newer generations, I think, the majority of us want more than stupid things like, and like, it's very much an older generation thing. Like, oh, at your 25-year mark, you get a mug. No one gives a shit. Give me a Starbucks card instead. Like, they're like, it's not it. Stop wasting your money on those type of perks when you could be doing something more intimate. Personalized.
I heard of this person who did something that I thought was just so amazing. And boom, I've forgotten who it was, but if I remember, I'll come back to it. But what they do is they do an intake interview when people start at their organization, and they ask them, what are your favorite charities? What are your favorite activities? What are you passionate about? What do you like to read, and all of that kind of stuff. And when it comes time to celebrate them and reward them, they go back to the about this person and they do something personalized for them based on what's important to them. And I thought that was just money. Brilliant.
I may or may not tell my clients to do that too, because it's a big thing, and there's no reason to like withhold that information. Like everyone should be doing it.
Everyone should be doing it. Totally
it's not
agree.
hard. It's not hard, even if you like had it written down in their onboarding, some of their first days, like having that. What is your favorite place to eat? Like it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's not that hard. And I mean, I think about things like, big tech companies, thou shall not be named, but they give off these massive lumps of crystal, to your point. They're worth like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But if I like to go to Starbucks or Panera or something, and you give me like a $10 lunch voucher to my favorite thing, I'm going to love that. Like, that's amazing. Or, send me a tough chew toy for one of my dogs.
Yeah.
They're indestructible. I'll be like, yes, I love that. Lots of good things in there. We've been talking for a little bit, and I'd love to keep going, but we try to keep it short and sweet here. And so I want to make sure that we leave listeners with a couple of action points for both camps. And so I'm going to ask you for your advice here in our final thoughts. So I'd love to hear your advice, firstly, for leaders and business owners. I think that Albert Einstein was probably really talking about the best leaders when he wrote that the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And so what should leaders be changing?
They need to grow their emotional intelligence. They need to do things to work on that, because once you start doing that, you grow yourself as a person, and then that trickles down in the best way. You start to become more empathetic. You take things less personally. How you react to things gets better, and how you deal with people gets better. And like just it can the over-encompassing message with that is like, if you're going to be a good leader, you better have high EQ. So that's what you need to be focusing on, because everything else will fall in place.
That is such great advice. Wonderful. And then on the other side, for people who are in that moment where they've heard about quitting, the oldies call it phoning it in. What is your advice to people who are thinking about doing it? What would you say to them?
That this whole quiet quitting trend doesn't mean that you have to give up on your work ethic. It just means you need to set boundaries in place for yourself to not be abused, because companies will do that.
Excellent. Really, really good advice there. So don't compromise on your values, but value yourself and then encourage others and hold others accountable to taking care of you as well. I love that. Brittinay, you're amazing. I always love spending time with you. Thank you so much for sharing your big, beautiful brain with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who are listening, if you would like to learn more about Brittinay, head over to workcultureconsultant.com. She's kind of a big deal on LinkedIn, so make sure you get over there and be sure to follow her for amazing truth bombs and just great insight. She contributes regularly, and I'm a huge fan. Thank you again for everybody taking your time out to join us and to learn. Come back every Monday where we get to meet more amazing people like Brittinay. And if you want to be a guest, hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for sharing your time. Have a great day.